Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Conor Benn has gone on a bit of a mad one in recent days. Of course news broke that the WBC found Conor Benn innocent of any doping violation, or violations I should say. And, since then, I've seen the reaction online. Bear in mind, Conor Benn does still have a pending UCAD case, or a case with the British Boxing Board of Control. So that case, or those cases, are still pending. Despite that, obviously, these matchroom mongrels, have kind of painted the picture that Conor Benn is completely innocent, which is kind of funny. You know, this whole Conor Benn situation, I don't particularly care about a guy testing positive for PEDs. My only issue with cases like this is not that certain guys test positive, it's that certain guys get more protection when it comes to drug testing than others. A-side fighters use drug testing, weaponized drug testing. When certain fighters fail, a foreigner like a Russian or Eastern European, Cuban, when they fail, it's the end of the world. They could kill somebody. And when a Western fighter fails, contaminated substances, adverse findings, all this shit. Again, we know the score. Most of us know the score who follow this channel anyway. Weaponized drug testing is real. And, certain fighters get more protection than others. All I'm really asking for, regardless of which way you go, it has to be a level playing field, Either let everybody juice or hold everybody to the same standards. And option A, let everyone juice, is far more realistic, let's say. But regardless, and also, These matchroom channels, I've got to say it again, man. The dishonesty in covering this Conor Benn case is quite funny. It is funny. Listen, people criticise the LDBC. One thing I'll give those guys credit for, at least they're honest. We know where they stand, to be honest, and we know why they think the way they do. I disagree with it. I think their narrative is toxic, to be honest. And it plays into what is going on. In the world now, the divide and conquer. But again, I've got more respect for that type of honesty than the way these kind of DAZN paid for shills operate. Just be honest, is what I'll say. Again, as the age-old saying goes, the truth shall set you free. Speaking of the truth, Errol Spence Jr. has been going back and forth with Conor Benn. Conor Benn, really in his feelings right now, feeling the public scrutiny, lashing out, acting rather emotional, which is in keeping with his character. I've always found Conor Benn there's something about Conor Benn that I don't like. I can't really describe it per se, but he's got a dark energy around him. And I don't mean that in the sense of like a Mike Tyson or a Roberto Duran, that killer type of mentality. I'm not talking in a boxing sense, I'm talking in a human sense. I think there's something deeply unpleasant about Conor Benn. And I think it really stems from insecurity. I don't think he's like a sociopath or anything like that, but insecurity creates dangerous people. And I've heard a few things about Conor Benn. I'm not going to repeat them here because who knows whether they are true, but if they are true, I certainly wouldn't be shocked, put it that way. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. Press 2 in the chat if you do. But Errol Spence has been clowning Conor Benn on social media. Kind of funny. Conor Benn initiated it by calling out Errol Spence Jr. He said the following on Twitter, @Errol Spence Jr. You've been talking the most, and well, I am reinstated in the WBC. I'll have you next. You worry about handling your drink driving convictions, wanker. So yeah, it looks like Conor Benn is angling for a fight with Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. clapped back, quite funny to be honest. You know, he was insinuating that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, basically insinuating that Nigel Benn, Conor's father, was also a dopehead, a juicer, and quite frankly, anybody with common sense would also come to that conclusion. He also made reference to the fight with Gerald McClellan. Now, obviously, we know how that fight ended. Gerald McClellan, after that fight, had a brain bleed and ended up disabled. And the rumour has it, or it's not really a rumour from what I can see or from what I've read, the story goes that after that fight, as Nigel Benn was walking back to his dressing room, he passed out so that he couldn't take a drug test after that fight. Of course, if it were ever to be revealed that Nigel was doping for that fight, then, you know, that would have done irreparable harm to British boxing and heads would have rolled. And if you go back and actually research drug testing in British boxing back then, you will be surprised. In fact, Fight Film actually made a good video a few months ago about this topic. I think he was talking about one case in particular. I think it was Lennox Lewis and Razor Ruddock, but it was a very interesting video, which kind of really highlights the issue of weaponized drug testing. You know, I guess it was even more rampant back then. But, yeah, I mean, is this just Conor Benn angling for a big payday? I'm sure he spent a lot of money on lawyers. He's not fought for quite some time. His reputation is in the mud. He's got really bad PR now in the UK. But regardless, bad PR is better than no PR. And people are going to be really interested in his next fight. And if that next fight is against an elite level well-known guy, more than likely it's going to generate a lot of interest. And obviously that interest is going to result in dollars or pounds. So yeah, maybe that's what Conor Benn's game plan is. Just go into the biggest fight possible, get the biggest payday possible, and go from there. Try to capitalise on his notoriety. It would make sense, right? It would make sense. You know, despite failing a drug test, you know, he's going to make more money on the back of this. And a fight with Errol Spence Jr. will generate a lot of interest, in my opinion. It will generate a lot of interest. And I'll be honest, I've kind of given up on Spence versus Crawford. If Spence versus Conor Benn happened next, would I be excited? Yeah, I would. I'm here for it. I'm here for the build-up, the nonsense back and forth. I think it'll be fun. I'll watch it. Would I pay for it? No, but I'd watch it. I'd get invested. Why not? Why not? I'm not expecting anything from the welterweight division now, so if a fight like this happened, I wouldn't moan. So, what do you make of it, guys? What do you make of it? Errol Spence Jr. versus Conor Benn. Could it happen? I doubt it. I mean, Conor Benn is trying to dig up a corpse of Manny Pacquiao. You know, it seems that Conor Benn is going grave digging. You know, the grave digger, Conor Benn. I mean, that's his career so far, right? Fighting a semi-retired Chris Algieri, Chris Van Heerden, fucking Adrian Granados, guys who are shot to bits. We should call Conor Benn the Grave Digger. That's his nickname on this channel now. The Grave Digger, Conor Benn. I've got to be honest, I almost admire the brazen shamelessness of Conor Benn. He knows he's not a real fighter. You know, he's a celebrity fighter. And yeah, I mean, he is the typical son of a famous fighter, like Chavez Jr., for example, or like Chris Eubank Jr., always looking for shortcuts, never really taking risks, expecting everything to be handed to them on a silver platter. Yeah, that's the sort of guy he is, right? He's not a real fighter, and he won't be around for that long, in my opinion. You'll see this guy in 5 years' time be on some shitty reality TV shows like Big Brother or something like that. That's his level. He appeals to the lowest common denominator. I've not really met any serious boxing fans who take Conor Benn all of that seriously, to be honest, and rightly so. Rightly so. Again, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. You know, juicers and dead from the neck up, essentially. There you go. That's my thoughts. But I'd watch this fight. I would watch this fight. Conor Benn versus Errol Spence Jr. Again, you have to question this guy's intelligence when Errol Spence Jr. is dunking on you on social media, right? I mean, Errol isn't exactly the most quick-witted guy in the world. I mean, if he was any more laid back, he'd be horizontal. But yeah, is what it is. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.